of Adjustment meeting of Tuesday, January the 18th, 2022 will now come to order. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of the committee, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest for the general nature thereof? Deputy Clerk, can you please note this and put that in the minutes? Planner, can you please announce the purpose of our meeting?
I assume it's okay. I can unmute myself now.
Absolutely.
Okay. So the Committee of Adjustment is holding a public meeting today in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, in order to consider applications for relief from Bylaw 2009-021, being the comprehensive zoning bylaw for the Township of Selwyn. The prescribed notices of the public meetings, or this public meeting, was provided by prepaid first-class mail to all residents within 60-meter radius of the subject properties. Ministries and agencies were circulated via email. The subject properties were posted with a sign advertising the public hearing, and the notices were available on the township's website. The notice circulation complies with the requirements of the Planning Act. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at this public hearing or make written submissions to the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn before any of the variances tonight are granted, the person or public body may not be entitled to appeal the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn on the proposed minor variances, you must make written request to the Secretary Treasurer of the Committee of Adjustment of the Township of Selwyn by mail, fax, email, or Dropbox. And so we'll begin with A52-21 is the first application that we're hearing tonight. This is at 2464 Fire Route 13 in the Smith Ward. The variances requested are to decrease the minimum setback from the high water mark from 30 meters to 14.97 meters to a dwelling, and from 30 meters to 13.97 meters to an open deck. To decrease the minimum rear yard setback from 15 meters to 12.8 meters to a dwelling, and from 15 meters to 8.6 meters to an open deck greater than 1.8 meters in height. And to decrease the minimum front yard setback from 7.5 meters to 6.9 meters to a dwelling. The proposed development on this site is the construction of a 236 or 232.6 square meter or roughly 2,500 square foot dwelling, a 50.5 or thereabout square foot or 550 square foot open deck, and a 36.5 square meter or 400 square foot covered veranda. At the time of writing of the planning report, we had comments from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board of no concern, and Curve Lake requesting, providing comments and requesting an archaeological assessment. The township has determined that this was appropriate in this particular instance and is a condition of the approval to complete an archaeological assessment. Since the writing of the report, we've also received comments from the Autonomy Region Conservation Authority. They are outlining essentially no concern, but the standard landscaping plan be a condition of the approval, and this has been included, and also that permits are required from ORCA. This has been included in the conditions of the approval. My planning report on this application outlines that it meets the four tests of a minor variances, and I recommend approval of this application. If there's any questions on this application, I will be happy to take those.
Chair, I understand that the agent, Lori Young, is online. Lori, is there anything you wish to add to this report?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good to see everybody. No, it's just a typical tear down of a small little frame cottage and a erection of a walkout basement with a loft and a single-story house. And what really hemmed us in is the fire route that crosses over and accesses one more house. But this property also has direct access onto the Buckhorn Highway. So it's a pretty large property, but hemmed in by that fire route.
Okay, thank you. And I understand, Deputy Clerk, that one of the owners, Mariola Broder, is on the line. Is that so?
That is correct.
Do you wish to add anything? Ms. Broder?
I'm getting no response on my end.
Okay, thank you. And Deputy Clerk, is there anyone that is in opposition to this application?
There is no one else here for this application.
All right, thank you. I'll bring it to committee. Are there any questions? Andy?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Per, in looking at the layout, am I right in seeing that the septic system is on the other side of the fire route than what the residence is going to be?
So through you, Madam Chair, to Andy, there is a garage on the other side of the fire route, yes? An existing garage. And oh, you sorry, I may be misheard.
I'm sorry. I'll try to be more enunciated. I was looking at the septic system being on the other side.
So through you, Madam Chair, again to Andy. Yes, we looked at that particular issue, and it is on the other side of the fire route as proposed. In this particular situation, it doesn't pose a concern. The landowner actually owns the right of way as it crosses that particular property, so they have the land rights to install a pipe to connect to that that proposed septic.
Okay, thanks, Per.
Any other questions, Anita?
Yes, thank you. I was just wondering, is that fire route still being utilized, or is it more or less just a dead end road?
Through you, Madam Chair. To my knowledge, it is still it is that fire route is being utilized.
All right, are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to A6221, please, Per.
So the next application is A62-21. This is for 1069 Mariah Street in the Smith Ward. In this case, it's actually located in Bridge North. This is for the construction of a garage, roughly 950 square feet. And of that 950 square feet, there's an attached carport as well off to the south side. And the carport is approximately 236 square feet. The variances being requested are a reduction in the minimum front yard setback from 85 meters to 76.1 meters. Just a little bit on that. This is a special exception zone within our bylaw, specifically for this site that had a very large setback, and that has to do with setback at the time of the building of the house on this property and the proximity of a wetland, provincially significant wetland off to the southeast. Quite a number of meters away, but the intent of the original bylaw was to keep the original dwelling the minimum 120 meters away from the PSW, so as to not to trigger an environmental impact study for the construction of the dwelling. Hence the reduction being here, just slight reduction being requested in order to build this garage. And also to increase the height for this accessory structure from 4 meters to 4.08 meters. At the time of the writing of my planning report, we had comments again from the Kawartha District School Board, Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board of no concern. In this particular instance as well, the township, the planning department here, we requested that an archaeological assessment be completed. That has been completed already at this site. We don't have the formal report yet, but the initial comments from the Archaeologists are that there were no findings on this property. So no concern. And Curve Lake First Nation was in attendance on site when the archaeologist was on site to do their dig. In general, my planning report finds that the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I would recommend approval of this application. We did also, afterwards, I should mention, receive, after the writing of this report, we got comments from the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority, and they have no concern and no permits are required from ORCA at this site. And we also have Peterborough Public Health comments, again, of no concern, provided that appropriate permits are obtained. And these are conditions of the approval. Those are my comments.
Thank you very much, Per. Are there any people that have signed on to speak in favor or against this application, Deputy Clerk?
Madam Chair, there's no one here for this application.
Thank you very much. In that case, I'll bring it to committee. Are there any questions? Andy? Muted. You're muted, Andy.
Okay, the bar wasn't working. I don't know why, but in any event, I've had to close the report. So, Per, I may get this wrong, but this application is for the garage. Is that correct?
Through you, Madam Chair. That's correct, Andy.
So, what I'm trying to figure out is why we're seeking the approval of public health, because I don't see where we're putting any kind of new septic system or anything in. Am I missing something here?
So through you, Madam Chair. So it's just and I don't know what off the top of my head the distances are, but there is setback requirements from septic systems. So it's just a review. The Peterborough Public Health has
sure that the garage doesn't get any closer to the septic system or within.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
That's right. Just so that the septic system doesn't impact the existing septic is primarily, I would imagine, what Peterborough Public Health is looking at as their primary concern, and why their comments are that they need to seek their approval.
Okay, good, thanks.
Yep.
Are there any other questions with regards to this application? Seeing none, we'll move on to A63-21, please, Per.
So the next application, A63-21, this is for 872 Fire Route 4 in the Smith Ward. This is for, again, it's a 908 square foot dwelling addition with an attached 314 square foot covered porch. It's an addition to an existing dwelling. It's at 872 Fire Route 4, and the amendment or the relief requested is to decrease the minimum setback from the high water mark from 30 meters to 23.47 meters to this addition. Again, I find through my planning report that it meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I would recommend this application for approval. At the time of the writing of this report, we had comments of no concern from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board. Curve Lake again is requesting that we consider an archaeological assessment for this site. We did determine again for this site as well prior to this that given the provincial checklist that this was something needed at this site and is a condition of the approval. And I don't think we've received any follow-up comments from any other agencies for this report. No, for this application. No, we did not. So those are my comments for this application.
Thank you very much. Deputy Clerk, has anyone registered to speak for or against this application?
Madam Chair, we have no one here for this application.
Thank you very much. I'll bring it to committee. Are there any questions? Seeing none, we will go on to A64-21, please, Per.
Thank you, Chair. So A64-21. This is for 1494 Jessica Lane in the Smith Ward. This is for the construction of a 82.46 square meter or 887.59 square foot detached garage. The reliefs being requested are to increase the maximum lot coverage of an accessory structure from 5% to 11.4%, and to increase the maximum height of a detached garage from 4 meters to 4.66 meters. My report again for this one, the application meets the 4 tests of a minor variance, and I would recommend this application for approval. At the time of the writing of the report, we had comments from the Kawartha Pine Ridge District School Board and Curve Lake First Nation comments, generally again recommending that an archaeological assessment be a condition of approval. We've assessed it here against our criteria under the provincial checklist, and it is appropriate in this case as well that an archaeological assessment be completed. Following the writing of my report, we did get comments from the Peterborough Public Health again, just that a permit be obtained prior to the issuance of a building permit for the existing sewage system, just to make sure, again, likely that it's not being impacted by proximity to the new garage. We also did receive comments from the Otonabee Region Conservation Authority, and they say a permit is not required for this, but they are recommending sediment and erosion control be implemented during the construction of the garage. So that is a condition of the approval of this consent, this minor variance. And those are my comments for this application.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Deputy Clerk, is there anyone who has registered either in support or opposing this application?
We have no one here for this application, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I'll bring it to the committee. Are there any questions? Anita?
Thank you, Madam Chair, sorry. I noticed that on lot number 1500, there's Jessica Lane and there's also a fire route 5A. Is Jessica Lane, is that a township owned road or is that a private road?
You'll have to bear with me here just a second. I believe it's a private road, but it has been realigned recently.
That's accurate, Pear. Yep.
Okay.
Donna?
Yes, through you. I was looking at the same thing that Anita's looking at, and it looks like Jessica Lane just goes to the edge of this property and doesn't carry on and doesn't show how it connects to the property. Is that an error in the map, or you said it was realigned?
So I can speak to that. There was that used to actually be continuous. It used to be 5A continued from the adjoining road all the way up to Selwyn Road, and the owner of a property over which the 5A traveled wanted direct access from his property to the larger parcel, which fronts on Selwyn Road. So he came to terms with the neighboring landowners, and so we now have 2 roads where there used to be 1. And so Jessica Lane comes from Selwyn Road and really only provides access to the 2 lots that are there. Yeah.
So is there one undeveloped lot in between the 4 lots? I can't read the number. 1,500 maybe?
No, I believe all the lots there are developed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, are there any other questions? Seeing none, I would like a mover and a seconder to approve these. Anita, Jerry, all in favor? All in favor? It's carried. Thank you. We have no deferred matters. We're looking at the minutes of the Committee of Adjustment meeting of December the 7th. Donna and Jerry, all in favor? Carrie, thank you. And I'd like a motion to adjourn. Our next meeting is February the 22nd. Jerry and Donna, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you very much. And I believe our council meeting will start at 6. Correct, Mr. Mayor?
That's correct. We'll live interrupt at 6 o'clock.
Thank you.
Hi, Roz, it's Tanya. I can't hear you, but I'm going to turn off both of your cameras until it's time for you to present, and then I will prompt you to turn the camera on, okay?
Okay, it's 6 o'clock. So Donna, I'd ask you to turn on your camera. And Tanya, how are we doing on getting streamed?
We're good to go. Thanks, Andy.
Okay, I will call the meeting to order of the regular council meeting of January the 18th, 2022, and begin with our land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the treaty and traditional territory of the Mishietsagi and Nashpek. We offer our gratitude to the First Peoples for their care for and teachings about our earth and our relations. May we honor those teachings. And I ask that we observe a moment of silence so that council staff and members of the public can quietly reflect on our duty to the community that we are trying to serve. Thank you very much, everyone. Members of the public, staff, presenters, and members of council, please be advised that meetings are broadcast and recorded and made available on the internet. I'd ask if anybody has a declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Madam Clerk, please note that none was noted. And just before we get on to the minutes, just a couple of things that I'd like to say, and I think I probably say this certainly on behalf of all of council, and that is a big shout out to our public works folks who have done an enormous job over the last several hours with, I suspect, very little sleep to make sure that our roads were plowed and people were kept safe. So to everyone, a heartfelt thank you for that effort. I'd also like to thank our tech people as well. We're back to a fully remote process. There's lots of moving parts on that. And we're back at it again after having thought we had left it behind us. So everybody who's been involved in making sure that technologically we're able to continue to do this, our appreciation. So we'll move on to the minutes. We have the minutes of our regular council of December 7th and our special meeting of December the 9th. Does anybody like to move that? Sherry, seconded by Donna. Any questions? No. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, any discussion out of those minutes? Not seeing any. We'll move on to our deputations. And we're going to start with some staff introductions. I'm going to call on Janice first to introduce Robert Kelly, our new manager of building and planning.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Maybe Robert, if you want to liven up your camera there so everybody can see you. I'm very pleased this evening to introduce Robert Kelly to everyone. Robert joined the Selwyn team on January 10th and will be taking over the helm of the Building and Planning Department at the end of the month when our Robert Lamar heads off into a very well-deserved retirement. Robert brings with him a great deal of experience in the construction industry, as well as over 10 years of progressive management experience in the municipal sector. He's very enthusiastic about taking on the challenges of this role, and that, along with his very knowledgeable, thorough, and open approach, I think is going to make him another great leader for our building and planning department. So welcome, Robert. I hope everyone will join me in giving Robert a warm welcome when they do eventually get to meet him in person as well. All of this electronic stuff seems a little bit impersonal sometimes, but we're doing the best that we can. So welcome, Robert. And if you'd like to say a couple words, that'd be great.
Thank you for the great introduction, Janice. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I'm excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to the challenges that I'll come across in the township. So far, I've experienced wonderful staff, and like I said, I'm really looking forward to getting deeper into this, and I'm glad to be here.
It's great to have you here, Robert. We look forward to working with you. Okay, we have another introduction. This time, I believe Lane will introduce Madeline Ayotte, our new financial services assistant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pleased to introduce our new financial services assistant to council, Madeline Ayotte. Madeline's a Trent University graduate with a degree in business administration, accounting specialization. And also throughout her time at school, Madeline acquired some excellent frontline customer service work experience as well, dealing with a variety of customers. Most recently, Madeline completed a successful contract at the M&R in Peterborough. So Madeline joined Selwyn to begin her career in local government, and my team's really happy to have her on board. So Mayor Mitchell and members of council, this is Madeline. Madeline, if you'd like to say a few words.
Yes, thank you, Lane. It's nice to meet all of you. Like Lane said, I recently graduated from Trent University last April, so I am very excited and so happy to be working here at Selwyn.
Well, it's great to have you aboard. And as I said earlier, we're looking forward to working with you. I'm sure Lane and the team have lots of work to give you. So.
Thank you.
Very good. And with a introduction comes a recognition of a departure. So as we all know, Robert Lamar is retiring after many, many years of service. And we just like to recognize that tonight. And I'm going to ask Janice to start us off.
Thanks again, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and this is Robert Lamar's last regular council meeting before heading off into his retirement. So we just wanted to take a few moments just to recognize his over 31 years of service to the township and to the community. I've had the pleasure of working with you, Rob, for many of those years, and I'm really not sure where they've gone. And it's really hard to imagine this place without you. So we're going to miss you. Obviously, there's been an enormous amount of change that we've experienced in all of those years, and you've always approached that change and the challenges and opportunities that brought with a very positive and open and positive attitude and approach, and that's created a lot of success for us and for you. You're a great team player who always could see the big picture and was always there, going above and beyond your own job description to help us all achieve our individual goals in our departments and also the township overall goals. Obviously, you've brought a wealth of knowledge and experience to the table. We're all hoping that we've absorbed just a little bit of that for future reference when you're no longer here, when we can just tap on your door and ask you a question. And of course, through it all, you've always contributed a great deal of laughter and fun that has made this job worthwhile over the years. So thank you for that. I know we were all going to miss you greatly. And above all, you've really made us a very significant contribution to the township and to the community. Thanks for all of your hard work and your dedication. You've done a great job, and the community is much the better for it. So thank you. And I hope you're heading off into retirement very proud of all the accomplishments and achievements you've made here, because there have been many, many, too many to list. So from me, on behalf of staff, just very, very best wishes to you and to Tammy for a healthy and happy retirement. You deserve it. And we will miss you, but we wish you all the best.
Thank you, Janice. And I'm going to give the floor to Rob in a minute. But before I do that, I want to ask if there's any member of the council who would like to say a couple words at this time. Okay, Sherry, Anita, Donna, and then Jerry. So start off with Sherry.
So Rob, I wish you much joy and happiness as you begin your new chapter in your life. You've left many fingerprints, some metaphorically and literally, all over our township over the last 31 years. We will miss your acerbic, quick-witted humor, and I ask that you please stay in touch with us. Thank you for all you've done for the township, Rob.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Anita?
I just want to echo what has been said and will no doubt be said by the colleagues on council. Besides being a total professional, I found that you were also very sympathetic to some of the challenges of people bringing in applications and stuff, and you worked really, really hard to ensure that they could actually move forward with their projects. And I think for the most part, people have great respect for you. They didn't always agree with your decisions, but they your integrity really shone through in all things, and just your willingness to work with people and you know, lead us and explain things to us with regards to building and planning. So I'm going to miss you, and I wish you the very best in your retirement.
Thank you, Anita. Donna?
Yes, Rob, and to the other Robert, you certainly do have big shoes to fill. I've always appreciated the opportunity to ask you questions, and you always had an answer. You had such a knowledge of so many things that had been done in the past, and could always relate them to present situations. And I also always appreciated your sense of humor, even though sometimes you didn't have positive messages to give. You always did, on the side, share a joke or a sense of humor. And I'm really going to miss that, and really have appreciated the wealth of knowledge that you have, Rob. So good luck. Enjoy your retirement. We might have to call you a few times.
Thank you, Donna. Jerry?
Thank you. Anita just hit on a word, using integrity. And Lord knows I came running and gunning for the building department when I got on this train about 7 years ago. And a lot of people at that point questioned integrity around there. And I have got to say, the integrity was never in doubt. Robert, you were as true to the people as you're allowed to be. You bent rules, or I shouldn't say bent rules. You've worked with people to make things work. You've made things happen. So as far as people ever questioning your integrity, that is so far from the truth. It's unbelievable. I did stop in to see you the other day to face to thank you for everything. Thank you for helping us out as a council understand the nuances of the building department, because I mean, it's that thick, plus another version, and to Robert, so I wish you the best, Robert. I really, really do. As I said, and get some R&R in, and don't get in your wife's way. Now that you're home all the time and she's used to you not being there, I will miss our 6 o'clock phone calls. And to Robert Kelly, Rob had a full afro when he started, and now look at him. So just a heads up, it's coming, baby.
Thank you very much, Jerry. And just before I turn it over to Rob, a couple of my own comments. So first of all, Rob, a big thank you on behalf of all of the community. I have found that you epitomize quality public service. If and when I think of public service, I'll think of you. It's been at times, I suspect, a difficult job, because sometimes you have to say no. But you've always done it working the very best you could to be objective in your judgments. To borrow a hockey analogy, your planning approach is always looking where the puck is going, not where it is. You're always considering what will the future impact of today's decisions be. And that has served the community well, that you've taken that approach. I admire your patience and your forbearance in going over the same ground many times over and over. You have a wonderful ability to multitask, and you have a willingness to embrace innovative approaches. And you're a great teacher. I have learned a tremendous amount from you, and particularly the ability to relate a specific action to a planning principle. I didn't know a whole lot about planning when I arrived 12 years ago as a counselor, and I've learned a tremendous amount from you. I'm sorry to see you leave. However, I wish you well on your next adventure. I have a feeling that there will be a next adventure. Retirement is a nebulous concept, and I think you'll find there'll be lots of people knocking on your door. So on behalf of all of our community, on behalf of council and all of the township, I want to wish you all the best and a great big thank you for everything that you've done. And with that, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Well, wow, that's Thank you so much for the kind words and the well wishes. I think maybe you can appreciate that these are a bit of a departure from what I'm accustomed to hearing, or occasionally accustomed to hearing. So it's been mentioned, this is the culmination of essentially 31 and a half years a career working for essentially the same employer. So this fact should tell you everything you need to know about my employer. In spite of the challenges associated with the nature of my job, I never felt the need to look further afield. That's a direct result of the very cooperative environment and the very positive work culture here at the township. If I can be accused of having any success in my career, it's entirely a result of the efforts of those that surround me. Beginning with the support of my wife, Tamara, who put up with my early mornings and occasional venting anytime I would witness some infraction as we drove through the township. She's always been good at reminding me to relax and to put things in the proper perspective. I've had the good fortune of working with very talented people at every level of the organization. I have a very dedicated staff who continuously deliver an excellent level of service, no matter what the challenge. Management staff who are willing to work and to do whatever is necessary to get the job done. And a boss that is incredibly insightful, who has earned my deepest respect. I've also had a great opportunity to work with a mix of people through the years who have dedicated a lot of time and effort to support their community as members of council, reeves, deputy reeves, and mayors. I am mindful of the fact that my decision to retire means that I'll be walking away from daily conversations with some of my favorite people on earth, some of whom I've worked with for my entire career. So this will create a void in my day that I hope to fill spending more time with my wife and family and devoting time to meaningful projects that I hope will lead to a moderately consequential existence. So with that, I'll leave it there. I'm very thankful and grateful to have had the opportunity to spend 31 years with a great employer. So.
Thank you, Rob. Well, now it's hard to shift gears after that, but we'll move on to our presentation. We have a presentation from Stony Clear and White Lake Council on protecting Kawartha Lake's health and value presentation. And I believe the presenters are going to liven up the screen. Okay, there's one and there's the other. Thank you, both. So the way we do this, just a reminder, the presentations are for 10 minutes. You're welcome to use the whole 10 minutes. At 9 minutes, I'll signal to you that there's about a minute left. And if you would wrap up at that point, and then I will turn it over to members of council to make comments or to answer any questions that they may want to pose to you. So with that, I'll turn the floor over to you and please go ahead.
Well, can you hear me? No.
Yeah, we're good. So I think we're just having a bit of a challenge with the screen sharing.
Well, now I'm here.
Okay, sorry, Roz, you're good. And Lois, you just have to unmute and then I'll share my screen again. That's great.
Okay, so I think, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Okay. We're very pleased to be here again tonight to continue on with the Shoreline Conservation Initiative. I'm going to provide the first half of the presentation tonight, and Lois Wallace will provide the second half. New slide, please. So just a quick review. On November 23rd, we defined the importance of conserving shorelines, and tonight we're talking about policy approaches to shoreline preservation. So the significance of shoreline was primarily what we talked about last time. And you will see a list there that you can just review briefly, and then we'll go on to the next slide. Okay, I see some difference here. Shorelines can be altered or natural. I'm hesitating a bit because I was expecting a different slide, but this is okay. We can go forward with this. Natural shorelines are all obvious to most of us. They're undisturbed vegetation, and it's usually within the 30-meter setback from the shoreline. We're looking at that as natural shoreline. And also altered shoreline, and also, I'm sorry, with natural shoreline, we're looking at a 30-meter setback. And then with altered shoreline, we're looking at any number of different kinds of alteration of the shoreline, including removal of all the vegetation and so forth. So we can talk a bit more about that, but we should move along here. How altered are our shorelines? I'm sorry, Tanya, we're a little bit out of sync here. Can you back up one? No, okay, well, something's a little bit remiss here. Okay, let's just let's go with what we have. Let's go to the next one, the shoreline. Hello?
Just give me a second, Roz. I'm going to see if there's another version. One moment, please.
I'll just talk for a minute while we're waiting. The altered shoreline has occurred on our lakes, on Clear Lake and Stony Lake, and others in the area for at least 100 years. But what we're looking at now is something that's occurred more and more over the last 10 to 20 years. So we wondered, I'm just going to keep talking because it's all going to relate back to this. We, the Kawartha Land Trust and the Environment Council formed a partnership to review the issue at hand. And we wondered about, how altered are the shorelines? Just exactly what are we talking about here? And so, okay, let's go right here. So let's just start right here. Natural and altered shorelines. So what we did was we approached the Fleming College faculty to provide student intern assistance to us in assessing shoreline features so that we know what we were looking at. The students have been trained in the use of GIS, which is simply Geographic Information Systems, database containing geographic data, and software tools for analyzing and mapping. So here's the goal of the project, which lasted from the beginning of the spring until the fall: collection and mapping of satellite and ground truth data to identify natural and altered features. By ground truth, we mean students out in their canoes, which was different from using satellite data provided by the government. Mapping project partners, as I said, Environment Council, Kawartha Land Trust, 3 Fleming College GIS students, and then during the summer, two additional students to do the canoes in the water. Our consultants were amazing, Sylvia Strobel and Steve Voros from MNRF. GIS specialist, and for the county, Tammy Sikma, the director of GIS. Next slide, please. Oh, could we back up one more time? Sorry. Okay. I neglected to say, if you're looking at the red, that the red is altered shoreline and the green is natural shoreline. And this is Stony Lake and this is Clear Lake. And we'll talk a bit more about this in a minute, but that's basically what this is one of several maps and data collected by the students. Okay, next slide, please. Here's the numbers. Here are the numbers for these two lakes. 62% of altered shoreline on Clear Lake and 29% on Stony Lake shoreline. So the students collected 117 kilometers and 1,400 land parcels of data. So what we're looking at here is the end result, and what we're asking now is, how will this help us? What will we do with the data to address our shoreline needs? Next slide, please. Oh, there's the one that should have been up earlier. That's interesting. All right, just quickly, natural shorelines are all of these features. And I said this 30-meter setback zone, and then altered shorelines include all of these, and you've seen examples of that last time in the presentation in November. Okay, next slide, please. And we're near the end. Well, the data will be used to identify lands requiring restoration and conservation, and to provide our municipalities with data to support the need for strong shoreline protection policies. There's additional information available to the council on mapping, methodology, and online application. We'd be more than happy to share with you. And now I'm going to pass this over to Lois, who's going to talk about policy.
Next slide, please. This survey of 23 municipal planners, 44 elected officials, and 50 lake associations we referenced last time identified a clear need for regulation. And our local lake associations see more and more damage being done every season. And they agree that the need for regulation is urgent. We hope that you've read the letters that are in the package that came to you. Next, please. Do we have the right tools in place to protect our shorelines? In a word, no. There is no regulation in place to prevent damage to shorelines on individual lots. Some lots are almost totally cleared before any permits are sought. And a lot of the worst damage is being done by new owners who want a certain structured ornamental look with very little regard for the natural environment. And meanwhile, builders and contractors just clear things out of the way for convenience, and there's really nothing to stop them. We know from years of effort that education alone isn't enough to prevent this damage. Firm rules and enforcement measures are needed, and then this is what needs to be communicated. Next, please. So what do our lakes need? Stronger shoreline protection measures in the official plan, implemented through bylaws and enforcement, to protect trees and other natural vegetation in 75% of the shoreland within the 30-meter setback zone on residential lots. And where historical setbacks are less, to protect as much natural area as possible between dwellings and the high water mark. As well, we need specific measures taken to meet the provincial policy requirement for municipalities to protect surface water features, recognizing that one of the most effective ways to protect water quality is to protect shorelands. Next. The Natural Heritage Reference Manual, one back please. The Natural Heritage Reference Manual provides the guidance and tools needed to meet this and other PPS requirements. And you have the authority under the Municipal Act to regulate tree preservation and site alteration. Conservation authorities do not regulate vegetation removal. So we're looking to the township to take on this responsibility. Next, please. Just want to share some current examples of what others are doing. Some other municipalities in cottage country put regulations in place 10 or 15 years ago, and we recommend that you study their approaches. Halliburton's tree preservation bylaw and Lake of Bays development permit bylaw apply only to waterfront properties. The permitting system regulates both vegetation removal and site alteration, blasting, grading, and filling. Muskoka Lakes uses tree preservation, site alteration, and site plan control bylaws to protect natural vegetation and landscape between dwellings and the high water mark. And these bylaws are being enforced. Site plan control is considered to be a good tool for regulating and enforcing shoreline protection. And we believe Selwyn's site plan control bylaw could readily be extended to apply to all residential waterfront properties, with the necessary shoreland and water quality protections built in. However, to prevent damage, additional regulation is needed to stop damage being done before permit applications are submitted. Next. So finally, what is our call to action? We feel it is urgent that you act on this issue. More damage is being done almost weekly. Please ensure that the new official plan enables the township to enact and enforce regulation to protect all residential shorelines. This policy then needs to be actioned on the ground through preventative bylaws and careful implementation processes to protect setback zones. We are asking the other townships around the lakes to do the same. And we know that additional resources may be needed to make this happen. So we ask that a greater proportion of the township's substantial tax revenue from the lakes be invested in protecting them for many environmental reasons and because healthy lakes are so important to the local economy. As was discussed following our last presentation, education alone is not enough to prevent shoreline damage. First, the lakes need firm protective bylaws, and then these need to be clearly communicated and continually enforced. Enforcement sends the clearest message of all, we think. Tonight, we ask Council to recognize the need for new, stronger shoreline regulation and to instruct staff to develop an effective regulatory framework that will protect all residential shorelines. We think it's reasonable to have such a proposed approach developed by late spring. And we'd be happy to discuss with planning staff in more detail what we believe is required. Thanks for your attention. Roz and Mike and I will now do our best to answer your questions.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm going to ask members of council if they have any questions. Just let the screen come up. Donna?
Yes, through you to the ladies. Sorry, I have lost track of your name. We really appreciate your concern for our lakes and all the work that you do. I don't believe that we've been quite as negligent as you're implying. For many, many years, the Trent Severn Waterway issued permits for the hardened shorelines with the armor stone. I believe that in recent years, they're only allowing armor stone for a portion of the waterfront. They've backtracked on that a little bit. But if you listen to our Committee of Adjustment reports, in every report now, PAIR adds one of the conditions that any planning application related to shoreline properties include a condition that requires the applicant to obtain approval from ORCA, including the submission of a landscaping plan to establish or increase a vegetation protection zones along the shoreline to a minimum of 30 meters. So we have started to do that. And I'm not sure exactly how long we've been doing it, but it happens on every minor variance report now. And we are doing other things, but I'll leave it to other council members to add some information.
Thanks, Donna. Anita.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to our presenters. Indeed, I think it's really, really important, especially because we have so much waterways and people come from far and wide to enjoy our rivers and lakes and all of the touristy things that go with that. As Donna pointed out, we do have some conditions that go with regards to site plans and 30-meter setbacks and things. 12 years ago in 2010, for some specific subdivisions being developed in the northern portion of Smith, there's a requirement for individual property owners to enter into a site plan agreement with the township, which would protect natural heritage features, trees, and other vegetation. And so the agreement sets our conditions and can be enforced. As just another example of what the township does in order to protect natural heritage features, etc.
Thank you, Anita. Sherry.
Thank you, through you. Thank you for your presentation. And just for a point of clarification, are you asking that the township set zoning bylaws and such to protect what is still natural, or are you suggesting that what has already been altered be reversed?
I think I can answer that. We're really looking forward. I mean, I guess we wish we'd been here having this discussion 15 or 20 years ago, just as 20 years ago was the best time to have planted a tree. But I don't think we can rewrite history. I mean, there are restoration programs that can be done, obviously, but we want to make sure that this applies, that this kind of protection applies to individual properties. And our understanding is that your site plan control only applies to subdivisions, I believe, of 3 properties or more. It's really the one-offs that are doing the damage. And I wasn't sure from Councillor Valentine's comment whether the protection she was speaking of, she mentioned planning applications, but I don't think most individual property developments come under planning applications, if I'm correct. So it's the one-offs that are really doing the work being done on individual properties rather than larger developments that are causing the damage, because there's a different process for bigger developments.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. There are many things that our township does that is that I think sets us as leaders. We do have a tree canopy and vegetation policy that was put in place in 2019 to encapsulate township initiatives related to vegetation management. Of course, we can't go beyond the land. When you get into the water, that ends up being the Trent Severn Waterways jurisdiction when it comes to weeds and such. But you, I'm sure, are aware that the official plan is under review right now with the county, and they are looking for public input, and it hasn't changed with regards to the 30-meter setback from the high water mark of all water bodies that are in the official plan for new lots. So if it's something that is being redeveloped, it would come under that bailiwick. And existing lots can use the footprint of a previous building, so they can go into that 30-meter setback if they were already existing. And it doesn't apply to things like docks, boathouses, and pump houses, but you know, it would be prudent for you to have a look at what is written in our new official plan. And, you know, I think that there are things, as I said, that Selwyn is doing that sets us apart from some of the other townships. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherry. Jerry.
I had a question.
Rosalind, I'm just going to let Jerry go ahead and then I'll come back to you. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. This is to either Roz or Lois. The altered and natural shoreline graph you've got there. You've done the whole lake. How many of the actual lots have been altered? This tells me the whole lake, right? Not the number of lots.
We do have that. Well, I think I said it was 1,400 parcels of data. So that's a lot. A parcel is a lot, essentially. That's how it's being counted. We do have the data for that. It's not something that we would share unless we needed to. I mean, because this is confidential data as well. But it gives us some sense of what's going on in terms of the actual the shoreline along both Stony and Clear Lake. I'm not sure that answers your question. Is that?
Sort of, not really. So then my next question is, so these people like Kawartha Park Cottagers Association, we use them, they're in support of this. How many are in support of taking their stonework out and rehabilitating their shorelines? I guess is my question.
Oh, we have no idea.
Ask that question.
We have no idea of that. We aren't really addressing individual owners at this point. What we've done with this study has to do with actually understanding the extent of shoreline alteration over this much mileage. And as Lois said, we're not focused on trying to change people's minds about what they've already done with their shoreline. We have had shoreline restoration projects in place for off and on for 5 years, and those have been all volunteer. We would say we're having some people here to discuss this, and you're welcome. And if you'd like to come, this is what happens. So we have had people who wanted to do exactly that. But that's not, our main goal right now, to be honest with you, is to really involve the entire community with the cottagers or lake community with the understanding of and some community work together on protecting shorelines. And so, there will be individual interpretations of that, but I think we need to work together with the community. We can't just be standing by and pointing our fingers at shorelines. It's shocking if you look at the Clear Lake shoreline, particularly on the Douro-Dummer side. It's absolutely shocking. But that's not, the major thing here is to try to understand the ecology of the contribution of shoreline to the integrity of the lake and water quality and the entire environment, and all of those animals and fish that seek some sort of food and shelter and whatever, playtime on the shorelines. And so, really what we're hoping for is that we can continue the conversation. I wanted to raise my hand to ask about that, actually. I think there's a lot that's been discussed tonight that would be useful for us to understand. And because Selwyn is not the same as Douro-Dummer, is not the same as North Kawartha. And I think we would benefit from having a conversation together with you on what really exists right now and what kind of changes have occurred. So I look forward to that opportunity. Donna?
Yes. Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Just a second, Donna. I'm going to go to you, and then I believe Mike's raised his electronic hand, so I'll go to him after you. So go ahead.
Oh, so you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I have a resolution here that I think would help with the suggestion that was just made in helping Selwyn communicate with the Environment Council for Clear, Stony, and White Lakes. And it's that your presentation be received for information and that our staff prepare a report outlining initiatives for shoreline and other environmental protections, and further that the report include a summary of the proposed policies that will be included as part of the updated official plan that will support shoreline protection specifically. And I would also suggest, this isn't in the motion, but what the deputy mayor indicated to you, that you should make yourself aware and provide comments for the official plan to ensure that they are, I'm not exactly sure what point they're at, but ensure that they are looking at shoreline protection.
And Sherry, you're going to second that? Okay, so we've got a motion and a seconder on, but there's a couple other people that want to intervene before we go to a vote. So Mike, did you want to make a comment?
Well, thanks, Your Worship. I would, but I'm not sure if I want to intervene with the motion per se. So would you like to make my comment now, or should I hold to do that after?
No, make it now, because usually our action on the motion will bring this part of the meeting to a conclusion.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'll just take a quick moment and say, so I'm just a volunteer, I'm a registered planner by trade, and I work kind of in a similar space, but not in this community anymore, across the province. So I get to observe a lot of different places. I'm fortunate enough to have bought into our family property on the shore 5 years ago, where we've been since it was subdivided in 1929. Yes, originally on Clear Lake. Even in my lifetime, and I think I'm young still, I've seen profound change. I have a picture from 20 years ago looking south down our shore, what was and what is now. The difference here, I mean, we've seen that Muskoka and Haliburton has been fairly proactive in terms of their plans and their bylaws. And the big difference really is it's the size, right? In Muskoka, the average lot is 300-400 feet. And we're talking 100. My next door neighbors are 60. The other side are 80. So we're into a very much of an urban environment on a lake, which is relatively sensitive. And I think some of the things some of the councillors have outlined that has been done have been helpful and have created some good mitigating factors. I would suggest, just as a member of the community, that I think we need to go a little further. And I know that this group has been very active in terms of the official plan, but I think there's a little bit more teeth required and a bit more policy that could be enabled. That would be a good balance, would strike a good balance, I think, for property owners. And to Councillor Heron's question about, our members who have signed letters like our association, which I'm the former president of, willing to undo the work they've done. I don't think that's not actually the ask. It's about how do we go forward with new developments or new clearing. What we're seeing again is outside of a building permit is a huge raising of the land to prepare the site and make it much easier for development, but it's not much easier for the environment itself. So I think there's a balance, and there's some great examples where they've had to struggle through this in Muskoka and Haliburton in particular, where a certain allotment of the land can be left natural and a certain amount can be developed, and it still allows the development to occur in an appropriate way, but a little more balanced. And I think Your Worship knows a little something about the Muskoka context from this history there. So anyway, I will just say I'm missing putting 2 children to bed tonight and being here instead, because I do believe it's very important and it's at a kind of a tipping point. So as a volunteer, I'm happy to weigh in with staff a little bit and help on some of that review. I think it can be done on short order. So I would give a bit of my own kind of personal time on that. And I also just, while I brought the floor really quickly, want to congratulate Rob on his retirement. We have had some fun together. He's helped me on a lot of projects personally and in my former life at the Land Trust. So hoping you stay in touch and all the best. So I'll leave my offers on the table there if I can assist, and I'm keenly interested as a property owner too. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I'm sure Rob appreciates that too. So, Lois?
Yes, I just wanted to pick up on the point about making input to the official plan. In fact, we've had a team, Roz and Rob Little and Mike to some extent, talking to the county planning department for many, many years and making written submissions to them to try to get the right kind of shoreline protection language into the official plan for the county and townships. And of course, we haven't yet seen what the new draft looks like. We wish we could. But we'll continue to make input to that process to the best of our ability. We do have limited resources and limited people who have an understanding of these processes, but we'll certainly be trying to do that. I just want to clarify again also, we appreciate that you do enforce the 30-meter setbacks, and we understand about the historical footprints, the grandfathering of those, and all of that. It's not the distance being enforced that's the issue. It is the vegetation and the natural landscape that is contained within the setback zones and on other parts of small lots that we feel needs to be protected as people are developing or redeveloping or putting in additions and so forth. We understand that you have some other things in place that we may not have been aware of, but we don't see that being enforced on the lake. We see trees being taken down and there are no repercussions. Nobody's coming out to look, and nobody's levying fines. This is the concern that we have.
Thank you very much. I'm going to bring this to a conclusion. We very much appreciate your input. I'll just make a couple of comments and then I'll call it the vote. So from my perspective, I think there's a fairly significant alignment between objectives. Shoreline protection, protecting our natural heritage, I think is something that I think everybody ascribes to. The discussion really is about the tactics that are used to achieve that and the balancing of the various pressures that come to bear when doing that. On the official plan, I'll reiterate what my colleagues have said. Now, the difference is that the county will very shortly be circulating the draft new official plan. It will take that draft, so now it's something that you can actually see and get hold of, and for a period of around 90 days, work to garner public input. And when that is done, it will then have the requisite, and Mike would be familiar with this, I suspect Rosalind and those are as well, there will be a formal public meeting, and the process goes forward. The province has asked all jurisdictions in Ontario to have their official plans done by July, and so they're working hard to meet those deadlines. But very shortly, that will be open. It is actually on the county agenda for the county meeting tomorrow, and so it will be dealt with as early as tomorrow morning. So that's something to take a look at. I like the resolution that was put forward. I'm going to support it. I think getting a bit of a snapshot of what's being done will inform what additional things as well should be undertaken. So I like that motion. I think it's a good one. I think it will give us some information. You'll have to give staff a little bit of time to get her done. It'll be a project, I guess, that the new Robert will bring under his auspices, and so we'll get to that. So I'm going to call a vote, but just before I do that, I think the deputy mayor had a comment.
I don't have a comment. I request a recorded vote, please, Mr. Mayor.
A recorded vote, okay. So we have a motion, we have a seconder, and a request for a recorded vote. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Mayor Mitchell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Senes?
Yes.
Councillor Ballantyne?
Yes.
Councillor Heron?
Yes.
Councillor Locke?
Yes.
The motion is carried.
Thank you, colleagues, and thank you, presenters. And we look forward to continuing the engagement and the conversation moving forward. So thank you, and have a good night. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you very much
for your time.
Hey, colleagues, we'll move on then to our final presentation, and that is on our compensation market review. I think Jane, I saw her on the screen at some point. Here, there she is. Okay, thank you. And I will turn the floor over to you, and then I will ask council to ask any questions. And then Janice, did you want to introduce this, or do you want Jane to go forward and then you speak to the report?
I think we'll just have Jane go ahead with her presentation, and then I have a brief report that would follow.
Okay,
Okay.
Jane, you're up.
All right, okay. Is my screen showing now? Okay, good. So it's the first report that we'll be doing is the council remuneration review. And just by way of introduction, I'm working with Gallagher Benefit Services Canada, and we do have a compensation team that is working out of our Toronto office. And we were retained by the township as part of a larger market review RFP proposal that went forward with a lot of the lower tier municipalities and the county as well. So we were retained to assess whether the remuneration for the council elected officials and the expense policies or practices that you currently have in place to see whether they're comparable to the other organizations that we have identified as market comparator groups to the municipality. So we're looking at municipalities of similar size, and size can be determined through budget, through headcount of staff that you have, through population served or households that you have. So there's a variety of metrics that you can use to determine the size. And then we look at scope of responsibilities as well to make sure that we have some symmetry there. Some of the considerations when we are looking at remuneration for elected official positions is that we want to make sure that there is some compensation that reflects the respective roles between councillor, deputy mayor, and mayor positions. We want to recognize that there's some time commitments or a lot of time commitments and sometimes a little less time commitments of the elected officials. It's not all done on a volunteer basis. We want to make sure that it's fair and reasonable relative to similar sized organizations. So it's a little different, as I've outlined in the report, that we don't look at competitiveness per se when we're looking at council, because we're not recruiting councillors from across the province. We are looking for making sure that we are at least covering your expenses, covering some remuneration and recognition of the roles and responsibilities that you are exercising through your time on council. And then the last point is also making sure that whatever the remuneration is that it's within the broader framework of the municipality. Basically what it comes down to is making sure that it's affordable for the municipality, given its tax base. So the report that we have provided outlines what we've done in terms of how we approached our study and the observations and the recommendations that we're offering for consideration. We identified 11 municipal comparator organizations for this review. Many of these, if not most of them, were in previous reviews. So that's our first starting point, is we take a look at what other reviews did you do in previous studies, either for staff or for council remunerations. And you want to have some consistency time over time, every time you do a council review, so that you're not just picking new comparator organizations each term of council. So we do have some consistency, but we do take a look at each of the municipal comparators to make sure that they are still appropriate. So this is the group of 11 organizations that we've come up with. In overall, in terms of how you fit or align to these comparator organizations, you're slightly above or just a bit below on the median population. So again, those are the metrics that we looked at to see whether these are in fact comparable. So population, household, taxation base, and then employee population or employee headcount for full-time and part-time positions. We developed a survey questionnaire for our comparator organizations, and we solicited those organizations, asking them to complete the questions, also to share, if they could, any bylaws or policy documentation that they have pertaining to how they execute their remuneration or per diems or expense policies that are applying to the elected officials. The elements that we really focused in on is what's the base remuneration that is being offered to each of the elected officials in the comparator organizations. What do you offer in terms of per diems? And we look at per diems for, do you get paid per diems for meetings of council, committees of council, ad hoc committees, or anything else along that lines in terms of additional time that's required. We also look at per diems that are paid for when an elected official attends conferences or workshops or other training opportunities. We've asked for information regarding allowable expenses, any other cash allowances that are paid to the elected officials in any way, shape, or form, and what are the conditions around what it's being paid for. And then the last element is around insured benefits program, access to health and dental, life insurance, accidental death and disability insurance, and then the pension, which is typically OMERS. And within that context, we also say if they don't get access to the pension or the benefits, what other opportunities do you offer your elected officials in lieu of these more formal or structured benefit offerings? So we received responses from the 11 comparators. We tabulated the responses, and then that's been the basis for the comparative analysis and our recommendations going forward. Just by way of definition, just to make sure that we're all on the same understanding in terms of the point that we draw in the sand, we typically look at the market median. That's the middle of the market. So we put all of the data points in rank order. We would pick the middle value. So if you had 11, you'd pick level, identify the fifth or sixth observation. And so it's the middle or the halfway point. The reason we don't tend to use the average is because an average statistic could be swayed by one or two large outliers, and it kind of brings it into a little bit more reality. Is where are you sitting relative to those 11 organizations? Are you paying more on the higher end, or are you paying on the lower end of that group of organizations? So the base remuneration, although there's no legislation that defines what base remuneration must be or should be, or what it's being paid for, the way we understand it is that base remuneration typically recognizes the time that you have to spend attending the council meetings, attending the different committee meetings and ad hoc meetings that are required as an elected official, as well as some of the constituency work that you do in terms of dealing with issues that are arising that you have to follow up on. So the chart that we have on the slide indicates the three different positions that we looked at. The Township of Selwyn's base remuneration that's being paid. This is all 2021 data as well, because that's when we conducted the survey. And then we have the median of those 11 comparators and what they are paying their mayor, deputy mayor, and councillor. The percent difference is the gap that you have between your current base remuneration rate and the median of the marketplace. And in all cases, we have the brackets, which suggests, as the numbers show, that the Township of Selwyn base remuneration rates are all either at or slightly above the market median. We've also indicated there the rank order, just for interest. It's not really a statistical measure, but it's just something of interest as well, is where do you line up in that rank order of all of those comparator organizations. So in this instance, we have the mayor's salary. It's currently showing with this comparator group that you're approximately 11% above that median mark. For the deputy mayor position, the salary is virtually at the median mark, so it's 0.9% off. And then the councillor salary is, again, a little bit closer to the market median with only 5.5% above the market median. The differences in base remuneration. So we do a calculation and we say, so what's the difference between the mayor's salary and the deputy mayor's salary, and then the deputy mayor to the councillor salary? And that the only reason we look at that is to see what is there enough differentiation being made for the additional responsibilities between being a councillor, being the additional council responsibilities, being a deputy mayor, and then the role of the mayor as well. When we did the analysis, we have right now that the mayor's base pay is approximately 48%. I think I did a calculation of about 13,000 salary difference between the mayor and the deputy mayor. And then when we have the deputy mayor to the councillor, it's a 22% difference. And that was around just shy of 5,000, I think. So there is definitely a hierarchy there that you would see if you align it to private or your staff positions. You want to see a hierarchy for the increasing levels of responsibility. And this was in keeping with pretty well what the comparator organizations were doing as well. So that's well aligned. When we took a look at the comparison data for the per diems, they are typically paid when they are paid for meetings over and above the core council meetings. And this includes the time that's required, as I said, for attending conferences or any other training opportunities that are being offered to the elected officials, because you are taking time away from your either your existing job or personal time. So the township actually has a per diem policy right now. It's $79.30, which is a little bit of an odd number, but it's there. And it is being paid for committee meetings and council meetings to an annual maximum of $785. So that's being added in addition to the base salary. We've indicated on the slide that this is actually a higher benefit than what your comparator organizations are paying or providing to their municipal councils, both in not so much in terms of the dollar amount, because where per diems are being paid by the other municipalities, it is a higher amount, but they have a very limited scope in terms of when they actually pay that per diem. It's usually for something special or an ad hoc committee meeting of council. Or in some organizations, they might even pay the per diem if you have your set number of council meetings over the course of a year, and then any meetings above that, you might pay a per diem for that in some examples. The travel expenses, they're usually paid on a per kilometer basis. This is pretty common across the municipal sector, not just within this comparator group. And again, we have the comparator organizations that you have are paying, I believe it's 58 cents per kilometer. You're paying 59, which is the CRA rate or aligned to the CRA rate of last year. And so this is aligned. We deem that to be aligned to what your comparators are doing. The other payments that are available, so access to insured health and dental benefits. This is available. A lot of organizations will make it available, particularly at the lower tier level, to their elected officials. One of the things that we do find, though, is that even though it's available, some elected officials do actually be very polite, hopefully discreet here, is that you will often age out of those eligibilities, because a lot of the pension plans are, you're capped at age 65. You have to then no longer be covered for those different insurance opportunities. But this is aligned to what the other organizations are offering. Premium cost sharing, where the dental and health benefits are available. The township does provide, in this instance, they'll provide you the insured benefits plan, and they'll cover 50% of the premiums for that coverage, versus in your comparator group, the trend where it is available is that they'll pay 100% of the employer's premiums. And it's 63% of the comparators that are doing that. So that's the one area where you do have a little bit of a lesser benefit available to you. Technology is another question we ask, is what kind of technology support do you offer? And I think this has become a little bit more important with all of the pandemic activity that's been going on, where we now have to rely on our technology and our computers and iPads and so forth. But in terms of what is being offered by your comparator organizations, there's a small, it is being made available, obviously, to the organization or to the elected officials. And then there's a couple of comparators that are also offering some financial remuneration or an expense type of policy that can go towards the purchase or some of the expenses that are associated with either the cell phone or the internet services. It's not common across this municipal sector to do that just yet. but I suspect that we might start seeing some more of that being offered in terms of some kind of a support. And then in terms of what the township does offer is that you do have these expense allowances. My understanding with your expense allowance is that it does not lock you into what is, what you can use it towards, but that you could use it towards the expenses of your data plan or your internet service provider and those fees. So in that regard, you are a little bit, again, higher than your comparator organizations. So in all consideration of all of the information provided by the comparator organizations as benchmarked against what the township is paying, we do conclude, obviously, with the numbers that we were looking at, is that all three of the positions are currently being paid at, or at least a little higher than the middle of the market of the comparator group. So there is a recommendation that there be no additional adjustments to the base pay as of 2021. And we do say, though, that as your current practice allows, that each year you do review your base pay and you adjust it by the COLA, whatever the COLA may be. Your policy says that you will do a COLA that's anywhere between 1.5 and 3%, I believe. Based on the October CPI. So in that respect, because the October CPI and the September CPI this past year was a little bit on the high side, the fact that you have a cap in your policy has helped temper that. But definitely, even though I say no adjustments to the salary, it's no adjustment to the salary, but you continue to apply your COLA practice that you've currently got in place. And then in terms of all the other expenses and allowances and the benefits available and technology that's available, we say that you're competitive and comparable to your organizations that we have compared to, and again, more broadly across the sector, so that there's no recommendation to change any of your current practices right now. None of them are extravagantly over market, and they're not under market. So that's where we're suggesting the status quo. Okay. And that's the end of this presentation.
Thank you very much. And so Janice, did you want to do your report?
Yeah, sure, I can, Jane. I'm not sure if you wanted to review the staff report briefly as well. I know there's not PowerPoint slides, but.
Yep, no, I have no slides. It was a fairly light report in terms of the non-union remuneration, or pardon me, now I'll call it non-union compensation review. We used the same comparator group for this review, which is very common. We like to say what's good for the council is good for the staff. What's good for the staff is good for the council. So it's typically the same comparator organizations that we would solicit for their salary information. We gathered their salary information. We did the job matching. We do job matching based on what we know about the different positions in the municipal sector. Not to say that every job is exactly the same, but we have a fairly good understanding of what are the different roles that and qualifications, the skills that are required. We look at the hierarchy as well, and we do the best in terms of our job matching. So we completed that process, and we did come up with the market summary. The non-union salary grids overall are slightly off market. They're I think on an hourly basis, they're 4.8% off of market or below market. So it's not a huge gap overall. However, when we looked at the individual rates or comparisons, we had quite a diverse spectrum of gaps to market. So within one band currently right now, I would say we had one position, for example, that was 10% over market, and another position within that same pay band that is 10% under market. So for us to take that market data and come up with a proposed salary range, we would potentially keep one position over market, or potentially have one position be maintained under market. So we found quite a few anomalies with respect to what the market was telling us, what the comparators were paying for the different positions in the organization. And then we also tried to do some pay equity analysis, and we had some difficulty doing that because of the way that the job evaluation was done, the way the banding structure was created. It's what we would call a floating band, so we couldn't anchor information well enough to give us confidence that we would be doing our pay equity analysis correctly. Given the wide disparities of the market data, the considerations about the pay equity, normally if we see those kind of disparities on the market data, we would go back to the client, we'd say, take a look at your job evaluation. Is the position, has it been evaluated recently? Maybe the job has changed and you need to bring it up to date, reevaluate the position, and then maybe it needs to fall into a higher pay band or a lower pay band if duties have kind of disappeared or morphed over time. There's some challenges with that in terms of the job evaluation plan, in terms of how it's been banded together. The point bands is not something that we would recommend, or we were comfortable to recommend a salary grid and a pay equity compliant salary grid for the municipality. So our recommendation back to the township is that put a pause on the market information. Don't leap ahead, because then you might end up paying more for some jobs than you need to, or paying less for some jobs than you need to. So go back and take a look at some job evaluation, implement a little bit more rigor, or a revised structure. I don't even want to call it rigor. It's just more of catching up to the new job evaluation tools that are available, and taking a look at your grouping of jobs, because it's been quite some time since it has been looked at. And organizations change, jobs change, and so you always need to take a look at these elements before you start layering in market data to your job rates. So that was the recommendation that we had come up with Janice.
Thanks, Jane.
Okay.
Okay, Janice, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Jane, for your presentation and all the work that you've done so far. So certainly just with respect to the council remuneration market review, first off, which has been completed. So looking to the recommendations, there are a couple of recommendations there beyond maintaining the status quo for a number of things that we do. And the one would be that the township formally adopts as a policy that council remuneration be aligned to the 50th percentile of the comparator market. We have never had a formal policy with regard to where within that market analysis we would fall. Typically, we have in the past for both council and staff relied on an average, and we've always said we'd like to be at the average. So the recommendation here, and I understand Jane has explained, why they look to the median as opposed to the average. So I believe that is a good recommendation. And although we have consistently done a review of council remuneration once per term, again, we never did have that written in policy. So both of those came forward as recommendations, and I think they're ones that council should consider putting into place. So I would recommend that you approve of those recommendations. Staff would then have to just go away and come back to you with an amendment to the remuneration bylaw that would include those provisions moving forward. With respect to the staff compensation market review, obviously, as Jane has reported out, there is a recommendation that we proceed with a review of our job evaluation process using an updated job evaluation tool against our current job descriptions. The job descriptions will be evaluated and an updated banding structure developed, and then that structure would be analyzed to make sure it's in compliance with pay equity. And I did note in compliance with job equity principles as well, because we've always, pay equity is legislated, but job equity is a choice. We've always wanted to make sure that regardless of the job and regardless of whether it's male or female, that we're paying the equal amounts for jobs of equal value. And then the results of the market analysis would then be applied against that banding structure to ensure that we have a competitive grid in place. So I did ask Jane to prepare a proposal for us to complete that work. And the cost of the project would be $10,700 plus HST. and the anticipated timeline would be 2 to 3 months to complete. We do have job descriptions for all of our positions. A lot of them have been updated over the past number of years. We would go back and make sure that they, those that haven't been are reviewed and are up to date. So I think we're in good stead to get that project going in short order. I think the proposal provides very good value for the work to be completed, and it would be my recommendation that we engage Gallagher to complete that project.
Thank you. Okay, council, comments, questions? Yes, Don.
I would be prepared to move the recommendation. I think it's fair.
I would
Yeah. Second, any further conversation? Not seeing any, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? That item is carried. Thank you very much, Jane.
Okay,
And
thank
Dennis,
you.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, are there any questions from question period?
No questions.
Okay, we've been at this now for a little while, so I'm gonna call a 5-minute break, and we'll come back at 7:25 and we'll complete the agenda then. Okay, colleagues, 5 minutes. Okay, colleagues, we're going to start in just a second. We'll just give Sherry a minute to get back online. There she is. Okay, so we're all set. We will continue. We're now on to municipal officers and staff reports. And the first report is from Rob, and it has to do with a heritage designation. Rob, do you want to present your report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So very briefly, the Heritage Committee was approached by the owners of 2080 Schmong Road, Mr. and Mrs. Sargent, with a request that we consider evaluating their property for possible addition to our designation of designated properties. As is our custom, we did accept the challenge and hired Emily Turner, municipal heritage planner who was involved in 44 Bridge Street, council might recall. She completed a report, and her report did establish that the property exhibits cultural and heritage value and merits designation under Part 4 of the Heritage Act. The committee then, as again it's custom, did review her report, and individual members completed an evaluation of the property using our scoring system, and we did indeed establish that it is in a category A, which makes it the highest order, I guess, in terms of our scale. So they have recommended that council support the consideration of designating the property as a heritage property under Part 4 of the Heritage Act. So as a result, I've created this report, and I've recommended that that council do just that, and to start the process that we would move forward by providing notice of it's in our intention to designate the property as required by the Heritage Act.
Thank you, Rob. Anita, did you want to add this, anything to this from your committee work?
I just, what I really like about this particular recommendation and this particular property is that the owners did come forward. So the owners were proactive in the past. Since I've been on the committee, more or less, it's been the committee and the council that have been proactive in seeking out properties for designation. But in this particular case, it's the owners of the property came to us requesting that they be considered for heritage designation. And once again, our researcher did an excellent job. If you've had a chance to read Emily's report, she's an amazing researcher and has done some really good work for us in the past as well. So I would like to move the recommendation.
Do I see a seconder? Donna will second. Is there any additional comments? Okay, not seeing any. We have a mover, a seconder. All those in favor? That is carried. Okay, our second report comes from Adam, and it's to do with our water and sewer connection on Smith Street.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it's Lane here. I can Adam and I worked on the report. Adam put the majority of the report together, but I can speak to it tonight. It's about sanitary servicing along Smith Street in Lakefield. As council would recall, the Lakefield sanitary extension took place over this past summer, and So that extension runs from Fraser Street in Lakefield out to tie in the Lakefield South development area. And so as a result, that portion along Smith Street, which had never been serviced by sanitary sewer before, is now serviced. While a significant portion of that project was paid for by development charges, it is customary that new individual sanitary services are paid for by the residents themselves. In this instance, the pricing that's being provided to the residents is a very good one, because development is paid for the main itself, and so we're just looking at the installation of sanitary laterals to the property. Adam worked on the cost of the approved project, and we've worked up an individual cost of a little over $5,700 to hook up to the sanitary sewer surface. We've had a number of folks approach us and actually already pay an upfront fee and connect, and that's through our building and planning department. They actually get a sanitary sewer plumbing permit, and then they witness the connection and move ahead in that way. We have had some interest from folks there, which is common in this type of special charge, to actually pay over time, and then that special charge is added on the tax bill. So that's why the report is before council tonight, is to get council endorsement of that option, should any additional interested ratepayers come forward. And so that's why the repayment schedule is attached to the report, and it outlines the principal and then a repayment schedule over 10 years. And as I say, this is fairly common practice. We did this recently on Park Trail. We had another section along Bridge Street, and now this section here on Smith. So very few sections now in the village are not fully serviced. I will provide some additional information as well. There's some questions from council with respect to the existing septic systems that are installed at these properties. What is the process there? So definitely, as has occurred in other areas of our built up area and as endorsed by Peterborough Public Health, before the connection is made, the individuals would be required to pump out their septic tank, and then the contractor would demolish the tank in place. So essentially demolish the top part of the tank upon itself, and then that void would be filled in on site. Quite often it's filled in with excess material from the dig that the sanitary service would be connected to, and then that area would be finished off. So there's no need to remove the tank or the pipes, and fairly standard practice and endorsed by Peterborough Public Health. So just before council here tonight, just to get this option endorsed so that we can provide that to our ratepayers in the area. There's approximately 10, and at this point 3 or 4 have already paid up front. So this would be for any remaining ratepayers that would want to come forward and connect to the sanitary service.
And so, Lane, a ratepayer could choose not to hook up, right?
Yeah, just at this point, and with the sanitary servicing provided, it isn't compelling the individuals to connect. So if they still have a fully functioning septic system, it just provides them with an option down the road if they need to replace it, that they can then hook to sanitary service.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or motions or Anita?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think from an environmental standpoint, this is very good news. I remember back when I was a young child, and at the end of Clementi Street, we had a septic system, and I remember when the water and sewer was brought in, and my parents were pretty thrilled. I do believe that the cost is extremely, very reasonable for what they're getting, and even in terms of increasing the property values. I'm glad that Lane mentioned or explained what was happening with the existing septic systems, septic tanks. So that sounds reasonable to me as well. Just as an aside, I noticed that the old bait shop that had burnt down has been demolished. Is there plans for the township, or it's probably purchased by a private owner or something, but it's really close there to the Unraw house in the bottom end of this line that we're talking about. I don't know if anybody has any comment on that.
Yeah, I can comment, Mr. Chair. Yeah. So the municipality does have before it an application for a building permit to fill that hole with a new structure. So that should be coming soon, we hope. Yeah.
I'd like to move the recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Donna will second. Additional comments? Don't see any. All those in favor? That item is carried. Thank you very much, Lane. We're off to consent items. Anybody want to pull anything? Donna?
Yes, number 7.4, and in the committee reports, Park and Rec 8A.
Oh, you mean from the Peterborough County Report number 4, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Good. So 7.4 and 8A. Anita?
5C, fire department personnel update.
See. Okay, anybody else have anything that they want to pull? Okay, I'm going to ask to pull 6.2. Okay, so let's get going then on 5C, which is the fire recruitment. Anita.
Yeah, so with regards to the retirements, and you may not be able to answer this question, it being a personnel issue, with regards to the all the people who are those who are no longer members, are those retirements just due to other, say for age or for other job opportunities? I'm just curious because that's a fair number of firefighters that are no longer members of the department. And I'm just wondering if there's any particular reason for those folks to no longer be part of the service.
Janice, are you going to answer that?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. Yeah, so those are folks, Anita, who are no longer with the department for various reasons. We've had quite a number of retirements from the department. We've had folks move on to other, maybe they've moved or they just personal circumstances have changed. So serving on this volunteer fire department just doesn't fit with what they have going on at this point in time. So yeah, it's a variety of different reasons. We have seen over the last few years, it isn't uncommon for us to have quite a number of changeovers in the department. You'll note that we did have a very active recruitment process as well. So we have lots of new firefighters filling up those positions.
Thank you. I'm going to do 6.2. I made an error. I also had 6.12, and I see Alicia is here. So on 6.2, they speak about two things in there. One is the excess soil regs, and the other one is the delegation of planning matters. And so my question is, are we going to face an economic impact with those new soil regulations? And second of all, are we in a position, or do we want to take advantage of the ability to delegate additional planning matters? So I guess that might be what the first one is to Rick, perhaps, and the second one to Rob, but Janice, whatever you want.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Sure can, Rick.
Yeah, we're working through this excess soil. It is going to be some cost to it. We're just trying to work through it. We've been in touch with Camian and Wills, and then Gary Mouland from the ministry, trying to come up with a plan because we need the material at our landfill to start closing it off. So we're just trying to work through it. We're not sure how much this is going to be right yet.
Okay, so at some point in time, you'll get back to us with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you. And Rob, on the delegation authorities that are in there, is that something that we've looked at or want to look at or should look at?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, so yeah, Bill 13 is something that we are quite familiar with. In order to take advantage of the delegated authority, there needs to be language in our official plan that's permissive. So I know that the new OP will contain some language that the intent is to for it to be permissive to allow for municipalities then to take advantage of the opportunities of Bill 13.
Okay, thank you. And the other one that I'm sorry I missed this at the beginning on 612, which is the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. I think, Alicia, you're a representative on that. They've added a bunch of new work in there, and I understand what they're trying to do, and it makes some sense. But I'm a little bit concerned that some of the other work that was originally scheduled in there, and which is important to our township, will get pushed to the back burner. And I don't know if there's been any discussions on that basis, whether you've got some assurance that that's not going to be the case. Anyways, your perspective would be appreciated.
There you go. Yes, so the reason that they have extended the timeline to the end of 2022 is so that they can ensure that they collect the appropriate information from the stakeholders. They were afraid that the timeline was too tight and then they weren't able to get enough information from the stakeholders when they did their first round of focus groups. They also found that they wanted to go out to the council and get feedback from the elected officials as well. So not just the municipal, but the provincial elected officials as well. So they've added that extra tier of consultation to the process. So there are some steps that have been added. So yes, it will prolong the process. So there are some things that the city of Peterborough has put in place because they had some of the same concerns that you've mentioned. And so there are two steps that have been taken. There was an action that was taken that this committee is working on. They've asked that they look at the opioid crisis as well as mental health and come forward with a preliminary plan to address those issues immediately before this plan is brought forward. So that will be brought forward to the city of Peterborough. I believe it's in the next 3 months. It could be in the next 4 or 5, but I believe it's the next 3 months. There'll be a preliminary plan to address those top two issues because they've been identified as major issues in our area. So although it is the city of Peterborough that has requested that, that is something that would affect the county and the city of Peterborough. So those are things that will be preliminary discussed, and then it will be addressed in more detail in this plan.
The bottom line is it might take a little longer, but we're going to get it all done.
Yes, we will. And we have taken into account, the committee has taken into account that there are some elections that are going on this year as well. So in terms of timing, they're hoping that they will have the final plan before October to take a look at and to have approvals. So we have taken that into account as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, our next item is on the county report. Item number 4, Donna.
Yes, thank you. This is a Peterborough County report related to when all the CAOs got together to see if they could harmonize an approach to short-term rentals. And it turns out that it wasn't appropriate because some municipalities didn't have an issue and other municipalities had other issues. But I just wanted to point out a comment that was typed in Selwyn's outline just to bring it into the public record, because some people may be disturbed that it was typed that we only had 4 complaints last year. And I talked to Janice about that, and she said it was 4 properties because it wasn't just 4 complaints, because I think I had at least 24 complaints myself. So I just wanted to ensure the residents, if they are listening, that we didn't just have 4 complaints. We had many more. It was just 4 properties. And then the other thing is that we're expecting a report sometime in the first quarter from our bylaw enforcement officer, Chris Tassone, and he's going to put forth a few recommendations of how we can strengthen our procedures in dealing with short-term rentals. So for people to stay tuned for that.
Thank you, Donna. And the last item pulled was on our committee reports, Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. Is that you as well, Donna?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. You went up to mute.
Okay. I just wanted to ask Mike, I know January has been really in flux, but we had said that we were going to have a meeting of the stakeholders for the ice allocation policy. So I just wondered if he had any idea of when he might put that meeting together.
Right.
Through you, Mr. Chair. We're looking at February the 2nd. It'd be Wednesday night, 7 o'clock. Go 2 to 2.5 hours. I've started crafting a letter to go out to all the users, all the renters, all the rental groups, organizations. Apologizing that it can't be live, obviously, because that was certainly our hopes. But it looks like February the 2nd will be the best date, Wednesday night, and then go 2.5 hours. Give people a chance to weigh in early if they want. So do 5 or 6 questions so that if they want to if they can't attend or they don't, it's not their ideal way to communicate, they could send something in advance. But they would get a couple of minutes to speak on behalf of their organization, and then we could do a Q&A at the end.
And are you going to include council members or staff members in that? I know you would be there. Probably Tanya.
Yeah, there would certainly be staff. Sorry to cut you off, Donna. Yes, we would make sure that you guys are aware if you wish to attend. I would certainly hope that the representatives who have been on the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee in the last year or two, or last session or two of council, would be able to. We would invite all council. And then Mark, myself, Megan, and management staff would be invited to attend if they're able to or wanted to, and to have some input prior to.
Okay, so I can just tell you now, I certainly would like to attend.
Okay, I'm sure Jerry would too. I'm sure Councillor Heron would love to as well.
I'd only point out, and I may be wrong, Sherry can check this for me, but I think February 2nd from 6 to 8 is the county's public budget meeting. So that's a conflict there.
Well, we haven't sent anything out yet, so we could move it to the next. Wednesdays are the best days for us from a staff perspective, and from when we don't have Chiefs games potentially and a few things like that. So we haven't sent anything out yet, so we could consider the 9th. Let me talk to staff because that is a pretty big conflict.
Mr. Chair, we might want to just be a little bit cautious. Sorry, we might want to just be a little bit cautious about having all of the council members participating in that public session. It may be better to kind of limit it to Jerry and Donna, given their roles on the Parks and Recreation Committee.
Fair point. Fair point. Is it going to be, so it's a Zoom meeting, right, Mike?
Yes, through you, it would be a Zoom meeting.
Will it be recorded and put up onto YouTube?
I would have to find out from Ange if that's possible, and if if that's, I wouldn't want to commit to that without, because it's not something that my staff would be doing, but I'm fairly certain, since most of our public meetings are, that it would be, but
Yeah, I only asked that question because then if Sherry and I are at the, and to Angie's point about not having a quorum of council, then it would be easy just to go back and view the conversation. Sherry, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Based on the last Park and Rec meeting we had where we kind of had to take control of the situation because everybody was asking for our opinions when we don't have all the information. Can we not have, because we're not in a speaking role, we're just there to listen. We're not there to give our input. Can all council not be there at once and, screens blacked out and not saying anything, just so that everybody is up to speed? Because this is going to be a hot button going forward, and I think everybody should hear it.
Angie?
Well, I guess we'd have to think about the logistics of that. So if the expectation is that council's just there to listen, we can definitely think our way through that. I don't want to make a commitment just yet without kind of talking with Mike about the logistics of that, though.
Yeah, just noodle that through a little bit, because I think we've had situations where we've attended a pick together. I think I remember doing that on County Road 20. So, but I totally accept your desire to make sure that we don't end up having an illegal meeting. So I get that. Donna, did you have your hand up?
Yes, if it's at all possible and if it's within the realm of rules, I think it would be very helpful for all of council to hear the discussion.
So why don't we leave that with Mike and Angie to sort of get their heads together tomorrow, and maybe you can communicate back to us as a council. Does that work for you, for Angie and Mike? Does that work for you?
Yeah, no problem.
absolutely not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I believe that.
Chair.
Oh, sorry, Anita.
Sorry, I just looking at the Parks and Rec, I forgot to pull that section with regards to the Lakefield Campground. I understand that staff are still working with Orca, but I'm sure that the people who are on the Facebook group would be wondering, is there an expected timeline? Because I think the original plan was to have something, sort of kind of in place either late last year or early this year. Do we have any kind of idea on timelines?
Janice or Mike, do you have an update?
Yeah, so we are working our way through with Orca, and we would hope to have something to bring forward to council at the last meeting in February.
Last meeting in February. Okay, good. Thank you. I think that's everything. So I'll make a motion to receive all of those items from Anita and Donna. All those in favor? Carried. Okay, so takes care of that. We don't have any petitions. So council portfolio updates. We'll go to Councillor Valentine.
Yes, thank you. I'm on the Parks and Rec Committee, and the January meeting was canceled. There was no new business because of COVID. Can't even say it. The library December meeting was canceled because we couldn't get a quorum. We'll be having our first 2022 Police Services Board meeting next Monday. And the link, we have no stats provided to us for January, but I do have a summary of the stats for December. The Route 31, Curve Lake, Lakefield, 314. Route 32, this is for the whole month of December. Annismore Bridge North, 197. Both represents a decline in ridership, but the opinion was that there were weather issues and students from Trent had gone home and they weren't riding. So, and they do constitute a large number of the ridership. So they felt that's why there was a decline in ridership, and that's all.
Thank you very much. And for economic development, Carrie.
Thank you for you. Bond Engineering is a recently established residential structural engineering firm that has located in Lakefield. And some businesses in our township are taking advantage of the unfortunate situation of the shutdown to do some renovations. So they closed briefly, and I use one example as the market in Lakefield. I want to take just a couple of minutes. I promise I'll go really quickly, but I'm on the Waste Management Committee with the county, and there's a lot going on that could possibly affect our township. So the majority of council voted for a request for a proposal investigating impacts of uploading township garbage collection to the upper tier, keeping in mind that some townships will opt out, and that the RFP will include wording that the current service levels will be maintained across all levels of service and townships. There's a meeting scheduled in early February with the township staff to talk about this. With the changes to first producers as it relates to recycling and the possible inclusion of organics collection in the future, there could be an advantage of having it all done at one tier, the upper tier. The County Waste Management Committee has also asked for an update from the city on their new organics processing facility project, including an overview, estimated time frame for approvals, and expected opening of the facility. We've requested this response by the end of this month. And that's my report.
Thank you very much, Sherry. Public Works, Jerry.
Yeah, the guys are out doing the plowing, as you can see, and did a bang-up job. On the recreational staff, Donna stole the thunder on the planned meeting for the ice allocation, but all the full-time staff are healthy and taking care of the facility operations. No part-time staff right now, and we're still planning on reopening on the 26th if the province stays with the current mandate. Other than that, that's about it.
Thank you, Jerry. Anita?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So our next meetings of the Heritage Committee and the Accessibility Advisory Committee are taking place next week, so I have nothing to report. I want to thank you for your support of the Chemong Road property heritage designation. Again, it was good to see people coming forward as opposed to the township sort of taking the lead. Just a reminder that Polar Fest, to anybody who's listening out there, Polar Fest is going to go ahead from February 4th to 6th. Our township website has the full offering. I know it's going to be different again because of the COVID, but still lots of exciting things happening. There's opening ceremonies on the Friday night. There's a snowman building snow person challenge until February 6th. Information about that is on our website, on the township website. There will be a virtual polar plunge once again this year. So if you want to shoot a video between February 6th and 13th of you doing a virtual plunge or making snow angels in your bikinis or whatever, check out the website for that. There's opening ceremonies at Chemong Lodge. I'm not sure what the COVID protocols are for that, but I think if everybody stays 6 feet apart or 10 feet apart, then it should be a lot of fun. That's at Chemong Lodge. Candlelight Skate was a ticketed event at the Speed Skating Oval. It is by pre-registration, and there is a cost involved with that. Saturday, there's the ice sculpture show beginning at 9 a.m. at Cenotaph Park and at Heritage Park in Bridgenorth. There's a Nordic Day at the Ontario Speed Skating Oval, a drive-through spaghetti dinner from Bridgenorth United Church. Again, this information is on the township website. Anyway, yeah, so a lot of stuff and information is available on the township website with regards to this year's Polar Fest.
Thank you very much, Anita. I'll give my portfolio report. Just a little bit on the county and just repeating something that was said earlier. It came up earlier. The draft official plan is going to county council tomorrow, and with a request to authorize it to be circulated and for us to engage in a public comment period. It is not 100% complete. We still don't have the growth study completed, and that will form part of the official plan. And there's also an outstanding request for a lower intensification target for the built-up area for the built-up portion of our settlement area. That would be Lakefield, and we're still waiting for that to come back from the government. Both of those things could affect the final product, but there is a direction from the minister to have this done by the middle of July. And so when you back it up, the need to get on with the public consultation is imperative. And so anyways, we'll see what county council does tomorrow, whether they want to move forward with the consultation. I then wanted to just talk a little bit about public health. So case numbers are being reported. They don't really have a lot of accuracy any longer. There are large numbers of individuals who are no longer eligible for testing, and so what the numbers are, Dr. Piggott, the medical officer of health, said they're significantly larger than what's being indicated on the website. As of today, we have 17 outbreaks in various centers in the area. We now, very sadly and tragically, have 41 deaths being reported. We've had a number of deaths over the last short while. The website from PRHC is reporting 35 hospitalizations here in our community. Continuing as a key priority is vaccinations. So when you go to the population that is eligible, so you've got to be 5 or older to be eligible to get a vaccination right now. Of that population, 14.3% have no vaccinations. 85.7% have 1, 80.6% have 2, and 47.7% have 3. Now, with 3 vaccinations, not everybody 5 and over is eligible for a booster shot, only if you're 18 and older. So it's important to remember that when you're looking at those figures. So there was a report done by the science table. I think it was based on January 10th numbers. And so it's interesting. If you're double vaccinated, you have a 25.5%, you are 25.5% less likely to get COVID, 77.4% less likely to end up in the hospital, and 90.5% less likely to end up in the ICU. So those were some numbers that came out of the science, some numbers came out of the science table. The other priority, in addition, and Dr. Piggott would like me to mention this, but beyond vaccinations, if you're sick, stay at home. Okay, if you're sick, stay at home. That's how the virus spreads. So if you're able to do that, you should do that. And I just want to make one last comment on public health, and that is to say publicly that I was profoundly disappointed that members of the public chose to protest at the personal residence of the medical officer of health. Everyone has a right to express their opinion, but to do it at a public servant's personal residence, where members of their family, including their children, may be present, is simply inappropriate. Our individual actions have consequences. And in exercising our rights, we need to consider the impact on others. So that concludes my portfolio update. We'll move on to other new and unfinished business. Is there any new or unfinished business anybody like to bring up? Okay, I don't see any. We're going to have a closed session, but I think since we're not going to come back into open, why don't we deal with the bylaws now, Andrew? That makes sense?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so we have the appointments to the EDBC, which we discussed at the previous meeting. The appointment, the formal appointment of the manager of building and planning, CBO. We met Robert today. We have a merger agreement to deal with from 1786 Young's Point. We have the borrowing bylaw, which we had on the agenda today. Also on the agenda today was the authorizing the interim tax levy. And then we have Rob's coming out of Lane's report, the connections to the sewers on Smith Street. Anybody want to move those? Anita, anybody want to second those? So Jerry, all those in favor? Okay, we'll do the confirming bylaw now.
Oh, actually, Mr. Mayor, if we want, we could just go right into closed session and we'll just close out the virtual portion of the meeting.
Okay, and then we'll do the confirming. Okay.
When we come, yeah.
Oh, okay. So we are going to leave online. So thank you to everybody watching. And colleagues, it is 8:06. So let's say at 8:12, we'll reconvene by conference line. Anita, sorry.
I just wanted to confirm it. So it is telephone?
Yes, it was an email sent to you this afternoon, I believe, that has the number on.
Okay.
Okay, colleagues, we will connect with you in a few minutes.